Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're breaking down what turned out to be a pretty heated political showdown in a House Oversight Committee hearing. Now, our guide for this whole thing is a commentary video from the YouTube channel Liberty Voice. Let's jump in. So the Liberty Voice video kicks things off with this quote, and it really frames the whole hearing as this big clash, a clash between ideals and, well, reality. It totally sets the stage for a confrontation, hinting that some political posturing was about to get a serious reality check. Okay, so before we get into the nitty-gritty, we gotta set the scene. What we have here is a Republican congressman grilling 3 Democratic governors. And it's all about the costs and the consequences of their state's policies. All right, here are our key players. You've got Representative Byron Donalds from Florida asking the questions, and on the receiving end, 3 governors, J.B. Pritzker from Illinois, Kathy Hochul from New York, and Tim Walz from Minnesota. Now, their states have what are often called sanctuary policies. Basically, that just means they limit how much they cooperate with federal immigration enforcement. And the big question on the table, the whole point of this, was all about financial accountability. Where's the money going? So the first thing Representative Donalds does is go straight for the wallet. He zeroes in on state budgets, asking a really direct question: how much are you actually spending on services for non-legal residents? And the first exchange is with Illinois. Representative Donalds asks Governor Pritzker for a hard number, a specific dollar amount. But instead of giving a figure, the governor pivots. He basically says that's a federal responsibility. But Donalds doesn't just leave it there. He presses again, asking, okay, but do you even track where the money is going? Do you know which public service dollars are going to non-legal residents? And again, not really a direct yes or no from Governor Pritzker. He says the state tracks its budget really closely and points out they've had a balanced budget for 7 years. All right, so next, the spotlight shifts to Governor Hochul of New York. And this is where a huge number gets thrown on the table: $4 billion. That's the figure Representative Donalds says New York is spending on services tied to immigration. And as soon as he drops that number, he immediately brings up another $4 billion figure. This time, it's the amount of federal aid New York was asking for to finish renovating Penn Station. So right there, you have this incredibly direct and, politically charged comparison of spending priorities. And this exchange really gets to the heart of the conflict, right? Donald's point is pretty simple. Hey, stop funding services for immigrants and just use that $4 billion for Penn Station. But Governor Hochul fires back, arguing that Penn Station is owned by Amtrak, which is a federal entity. So in her view, that makes it a federal problem that needs federal money to fix. Just like she argues the immigration issue. So the hearing was all about budgets, and then suddenly it pivots. Hard. It takes this really sharp, dramatic turn. And the next exchange, this one with Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, well, this became the most heated moment of the entire hearing. So what happened? Representative Donalds confronts Governor Walz directly about something he'd said in the past. He quotes him, saying he compared ICE agents, the ones acting under orders from President Trump, to a modern-day Gestapo. And then he asks him, right there on the record, would you like to recant that statement? So Governor Walz tries to clarify his comment. He says, look, what I said was that President Trump was using them as his modern-day Gestapo. So he's trying to draw this line, right? He's saying his criticism wasn't about the agents themselves, but about the orders they were given and how they were being used. Well, Representative Donalds was not having any of that clarification. He just rejects it outright and delivers this really forceful rebuttal. He accuses the governor of, quote, diminishing the work of these agents just to score a cheap political point he could tweet about. Okay, so we've seen the key moments of the hearing. Now let's circle back to our source, that commentary from the Liberty Voice YouTube channel, and see how they interpreted the whole thing and, how they framed the ending. The narrator from Liberty Voice really latches onto the silence that followed Donald's last big statement. I mean, he doesn't just see it as a pause. He calls it, and this is a direct quote, the sound of total defeat. So here's a rundown of the Liberty Voice video's perspective, and it is definitely a strong one. The narrator called the whole thing a beatdown and a masterclass by Representative Donalds. He said Governor Pritzker was just deflecting and playing dumb. He called Governor Hochul's arguments the classic Democrat playbook. And that Gestapo comment from Governor Walz, he labeled it vile and hateful. So the final takeaway from the source video is pretty clear. The governors just had 0 answers. And all of this really brings us to one final thought, doesn't it? When you analyze a hearing like this, especially through the lens of a commentary source like Liberty Voice, it really puts a spotlight on the element of performance in politics. It kind of makes you wonder, in these big public showdowns, is the real goal to actually find answers, or is it more about creating the most powerful, most compelling narrative for your side? It's definitely something to think about.